I'm gonna hit the go live button, and we are live.
All right, I'm recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Tonight we're going to regale you with tales of times forgot. Fond memories of childhood. No, we're not going to do that. We're not doing that. Nope. We're going to discuss Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which is a book we both read. And we're going to talk about, the modern capitalism and how it affects all our lives and what we're going to do about it.
Right? We all read Infinite Jest.
Yeah. We're going to have a David Foster Wallace podcast that ends with a collective suicide. It'll be one for the books, folks.
I know nothing about Infinite Jest other than it's a really long book and it's apparently super pretentious. Or what's the word? Yeah, it's pretentious, right? Fuck.
Pretentious sounds right.
Okay.
I mean, I read it, but it's like, yeah, okay, I read that. People told me to read it, and I read it, and it's like, great. I've never spoken about it. So.
The title Infinite Jest makes it sound like it's a sci-fi book, but it's not that, right? It's like a drama.
No, it's like, it's been 15 years since I've read that.
I think I actually have it on my Audible account just because I think the book's like 120 hours or something like that. It's this is a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot of entertainment value. Let me remind myself of what this is about. It is in the future, I know that.
Oh yeah, huh?
Like the nations are all mixed up and so I don't know. I'm not gonna.
All right, well, let's talk about Monaco.
Yes, we had a F1 race last weekend. Monaco, with a lot of let's see. We had Mercedes-Benz had a nut problem.
They had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So
that was the one I remember because the guy just got out of his car and sits on the ground like he's so pissed.
Yeah, well, he goes to like the FIA garage and not to his own garage because he needs a moment to like just collect himself.
Yeah,
so he can't like look his team in the eyes like, you guys fucked me again. I did nothing wrong and you fucked me.
Yeah, because that's the F1 uninut, the tire nut thing, right?
Yeah.
And why did that fail? And why is that a Mercedes problem? Because the guys doing the commentation are like, well, this is a Mercedes thing again for Bottas. It's like, this is not the first time this has happened. It's like, what?
So like Bottas was in second place and he comes into a pit. And so Toto Wolff, like, I don't know his problem. Maybe somebody took it out of context. A lot of things with F1 is that because it's internationally more renowned, you get a lot of bullshit news articles around F1, especially if you follow the Reddit. It's like everything is just like what's real information and what's just like TMZ bullshit.
F1 fan fiction.
So somebody like reported Toto Wolff saying that like the problem was that like Bottas pulled up too short and then the wheel gun guy like took it at an awkward angle, so he kind of like didn't have it on the nuts squarely, or he had it kind of at an off angle, and he just rounded every little bit of that nut on the car, and so it couldn't take it off, and it was just stuck there.
Okay.
So that was yeah. If you go back and look at it, you can see how there's like just all the metal flying off because how the guy has it on there, and he just keeps trying it, and they just fucking rounded off every little bite on the nut.
They need to make a Uninut easy out on the very next gun they hand him.
Well, I was thinking like, why couldn't they get it off? And then like, because it's like yeah, we've had like you have to do bolt extractions all the time, but there's not like a center thing that you can like, you can't just drill it out and pull it out because like the center is like hollow essentially, so you can only take it out by the outside. I was like, and I saw like these guys have this big fucking wrench they put it on without like before the race. They don't put it on with the gun, they put it on with this giant wrench thing. It's like, and like one way you get a nut off is you just weld the wrench to the nut and then take it off. But they didn't do that either. I don't know if they couldn't for some weird reason, but they didn't do that. Like they took it back home, and 48 hours later, a guy's just sitting there with a Dremel, and he's just like cutting apart the bolt until he could just loosen it by hand. I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, you think they have they have extra. You can break a nut or round it off, and they got something called an easy out.
Yeah,
and you could just with the money Formula One has, you think they would just have one of those standing by, or maybe
no, an easy out needs like a center, and that's the thing. The nut doesn't have a center because the nuts.
No, I mean they have.
Oh, they have one.
Yeah, it looks like
okay.
Leaves are cut into it, so when you lock it up, it puts pressure on anything that's left.
Huh.
Yeah, no, it's not the tap and drill easy out I was talking about. It's the kind where the actual socket is made like that with the same waves that you see on the tap.
So it'd be like a center, and then like you tap it from the sides.
No, it'd just be like a giant socket with those.
Or is it like those? Or is it like those gator wrenches where they just have a bunch of stuff in there?
No, it's more designed than that because it's designed. It's like reverse. So it's made to just grab onto whatever's metal's left because it kind of tapers up. It kind of tapers down as it goes back. So if you pound it on with a hammer, you're going to pound the socket over this giant nut and then put a wrench on it, back it up. But I don't know if the kind of forces that are involved with those, if that could even work. So
yeah. Well, I've like I heard people talk about like stuff like this happens before, and then like I think it happened with Ferrari before, but like the guy came out with like a hammer and just like boom, 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 and then got it loose somehow, and because those nuts are captive to the wheels, so once you get the wheel off, it's like the next wheel has a nut of its own, so you're fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seemed kind of a shitty thing to blame Botas for like pulling up a little short, because then they put a side-by-side video of like the Red Bull pit crew, and it's like, here's the Red Bull pit crew doing the fastest pit stop of all time, and guess what? Max Verstappen didn't pull up in the right spot either. They still did handle it just fine.
You think the guy driving the Formula One race car would not have to be within 4 centimeters or the nuts out around, because the guy's holding a fucking impact wrench and has a wrist and an arm? You think he could center up on that a little bit? But I don't know. I'm not an expert.
I mean, that's the thing about F1 pit stops is like they're so rudimentary, but they're so like that's very high pressure situations, and sometimes shit happens.
Yeah, sure it does.
And we've seen Mercedes fumble shit before, so and Mercedes is not the best pit crew, so
isn't that Red Bull that's like the scientific pit crew?
Red Bull is the best pit crew.
Tire change.
Yeah, because they have all the records. Weirdly enough, do you know what the second best pit crew in Formula One is?
Is it the guys who own the machine tool company?
Williams,
yeah.
And I don't know, like, if they just have like some training regimen that just worked for years, or if that whenever they come in, there's just no pressure because they're never winning.
Yeah,
and they just
We're
do
gonna
awesome
be the best pit crew we can be, because our guy's never going to be on a podium. So let's just do this. Just hire like Olympic track and field people on the pit crew.
Well, the pit crews, like, so that's the interesting thing about the pit crews, that they're not just hired guns that come in there and do like this physical thing. Like, they are mechanics. They put the car together.
Yeah,
and so like something
they're experts, but yeah, it's still.
But yeah, you think like you could hire Olympians and then just like have them turn a wrench and then like that. But yeah, Red Bull has like a whole like you know, because they'd have all different kinds of sports, so they just have these sports facilities, and they send these guys here. It's like, here's the diet you're gonna have, here's your workout regimen, and they just like plan that shit out for these guys, because like all those guys are pretty fit, and like, you know, and like they have like great like doctors and physio guys. That's like the new. They used to be called physical therapists, but now they're just called physios. And I don't know when that change happened, but it's everywhere now. That now it's just called physio.
Means they can charge 25% more for the same service. But yeah.
So yeah, so apparently I don't know, like I don't know, Mercedes, like I always think like the I like the was Racing Point, now Austin Martin, like their guys are kind of like all over the place and like kind of their body compositions, because like the rear jack guy is just this huge fat guy that can just lift up the car. Well, I'm not sure if he's fat, he just like he's a huge man.
He's your anchor guy.
Yeah. And I've only seen one photo of him, so I'm not even sure if he's still there, but like it was like hilarious when he was with Racing Point. And it's just this giant man in a pink outfit and a racing helmet and fireproof gear.
He's there to win.
Yeah, like yeah, that's probably like one thing. Like mostly like what Mercedes pit crew is usually good at, but it's a thing that's easy to fuck up. Is like they're known for their double pit stops where they just have them come in back to back.
Yeah.
Like
That's
because
what was
they're
going on here, right?
No.
Oh, I thought this was a back. It was Hamilton and then.
Well, Hamilton came later, but Hamilton was in 7th place, so they weren't like, because usually when they do the double stacks, it's because like they're running like 1st and 2nd or 1st and 3rd.
Oh, they're trying to stack. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Hamilton just had he did not have a good week in this. And yeah, you got some ugly Hamilton. Huh?
Wasn't that kind of a planned or like a known thing though, that people were not expecting a huge performance, especially after qualifying?
Yeah.
Because the trick is in Monaco, you can't really pass, or you can, but it's like tire to tire, like
Yeah.
passing.
It's passing or wrecking, and it's a very thin margin.
Yeah.
The conclusion. So where we left off with Monaco is hometown boy Charles Leclerc puts it on pole and wrecks it in Q3 and red flags a session and is an on pole. They go and put the car together, and then as soon as they do what's called an installation lap, which is where they get it, it's not like a parade lap, it's like the first lap they go out there. Car has a problem with the left, and so the speculation was, is there going to be a problem with the gearbox? And they didn't blame the gearbox. They said it was the left drive shaft cam.
Okay.
I think that's it. Which baffled me, and I was like, is there multiple drive shafts in a car?
Oh yeah, really
Okay.
powerful ones. Yeah. Usually in most cars, if they're rear wheel drive, it's transmission to differential. But in really powerful cars, it's like there's a differential and then there's 2 out drives that are also
Oh, okay.
drive shafts instead of like a geared rod, which is
Okay.
Most cars are front wheel drive, so then, it's right to the transmission.
So on the radio, the car isn't working, and so he gets on the radio and he says, "Oh no, it's a gearbox." And later on, they said it was this left gear shaft thing, which that was interesting because he crashed the right side of the car. So apparently, something, because these modern cars, like, they transfer energy to the other side, and so it's not going through the driver. So I guess it seems weird because they basically said like, we didn't check the left side of the car. I was like, why didn't you just check fucking everything?
Yeah.
What-
Why you got there?
it's like I don't know, maybe it was like, maybe there's something they can't say. Maybe there's some weird rule where it's like, well, if we looked at it and we had to change something, then we couldn't start it on pole. Yeah, I don't know. There's just but the reason they give that basically like, we just forgot to look. This seems stupid. And Ferrari can be really stupid sometimes, but that, I don't know, that seems like a weird answer and probably not the complete truth.
Yeah, probably
Or
something.
it is, or it's the embarrassing truth. I mean, also, there's like some guy said that like, when you put the car up on jacks, like everything can look fine, but as soon as you put it under weight and pressure, then like that's when
Yeah.
some problems reveal themselves, and I can see that. So
Yeah, I mean, these kind of cars are running at the extreme end of technology, and these cars aren't made to run 100,000 miles with no problems. I mean, these are cars that if you hit the gas too deeply going around the corner, it will spin out of control. How powerful these cars are.
So he doesn't get to pull, and they didn't move everybody up. The pole position was just empty when they started the race.
Empty. Okay, that's weird. I guess that's one way to do it.
Well, like somebody was saying, like, well, Christian Horner was like, "Can we just move everybody up and then Max Verstappen would be on pole?" Because I guess because of how the track layout, like actually Bottas, even though he was in third, technically second because Leclerc's gone, he had the way his side of the track has an advantage to it. So that's like at the start of the race, like Bottas actually got a better start than Max Verstappen, and Max Verstappen just like cut him the fuck off. It's like, no, you're not coming over here.
No matter what.
And then that was pretty much the race.
Yeah. You were saying something happened with Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton tries an undercut, or the strategy comes up, we're going to do an undercut, and it doesn't fucking work at all. So they try to pit early, but apparently like he was saving the tires, and usually like if you're about to pit, you want to just blow up your tires and do really fast laps, but he wasn't doing that. He's also stuck behind Gasly the whole time. Goes into pit. They get the 2-second pit, which is really good for them. Comes out and he's still behind Gasly. And he's like, what the fuck? And yeah, later after the race, you got a lot of kind of ugly Hamilton stuff, which I've seen this stuff before. Like usually he's gracious about stuff, but he's like, is there anything you can learn this weekend? It's like, me? No, my team a lot. Like he just threw his whole team under the bus. It's like they fucked me. And I don't like sometimes like Hamilton can be a poor sport about stuff. Like mostly this kind of I didn't watch this season, but this is what I hear about the season when his teammate won the championship, Nico Rosberg. Like they just had like a really contentious like time, and like there's apparently a lot of backstage stuff where it's like just Lewis Hamilton being very whiny about stuff, and it's like, and the team's like, well, Rosberg's ahead of the thing, so you got to be the second driver, and like Lewis Hamilton like that. And there's that point in that season at the Spanish Grand Prix where they wrecked each other out of the race on the first lap. And although that did make a great story, because like what happens, so that was the same day that Red Bull kicked Daniel Kvyat out of Red Bull, and then they brought Max Verstappen up to Red Bull, and his first race with Red Bull he won because the Mercedes wrecked themselves out of the race. But like there's a whole story with like Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton like basically grew up together in karting, and they were friends, and this season ruined their friendship.
Oh, they're so competitive, they just can't get past that.
Yeah, and Nico Rosberg, he won the championship and he retired. He basically said, "Fuck this! Like I got mine." Hamilton's not always gracious about everything or the best, but
he's not the what's that guy's name? The hockey player,
Gretzky.
Yeah, he's not the Gretzky of Formula One.
I mean, he's probably the best driver, but like there's kind of an ugly side to Lewis Hamilton that you don't always see. But
these guys are so ferociously competitive.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. There's a Beyond the Grid. It's a podcast that Formula One does, and it's really good because it gets a lot of candid interviews that you don't usually get, especially from a Formula One produced podcast. And they had Grosjean on, and he's talking about IndyCar, and like that just seems like a lot of fun for Grosjean, because like he like rents this or he bought an RV. And they basically just like him and all the other racing guys have RVs, and they just like take their family along onto the next race, park their RVs together, and just like have cookouts in between races and like talk to each other and just hang out. And he's just like, yeah, we never do that shit in F1. And he said he was talking to Colton Herta, and like, like when they're behind the safety car and like they weave back and forth because they're trying to keep heat in the tires or put and Grosjean was talking to Colton Herta, and he's like, "Why don't you guys weave back into the fourth to heat the tires?" Like Colton Herta's like, "Oh, that shit doesn't work. Just drive with the brake and the accelerator at the same time. Just do it a couple times, and then that'll heat up your tires." And he says, "You know what? He was right."
That Gary Red and that tire will be warm.
And then, like he said, the thing about that is like, he said he loved that because it's like in F1, no other driver would ever give you a tip because that's just gonna hurt you. And these guys are like, "No, I want to face you at your best. Here's all the tips."
Do this, do that.
So yeah, Lewis Hamilton tries to undercut, doesn't work, ends up behind Gasly again. Sebastian Vettel does an overcut, comes out in front of Gasly and Hamilton, so Hamilton loses 2 places, and he's pissed. And during that, so Vettel comes out of the pit, and he's racing wheel to wheel with Gasly, and the TV fucking cuts away from it. So there's a story to that. So it's like, how did F1 fuck this up? So sometimes in certain countries, F1 doesn't do the broadcast. Like there's like the local team that does the broadcast.
Oh, they got some union rules or something, huh?
Something like that. So, but now almost everybody hands over the reins to F1 in almost every country except Monaco. So the local Monaco people, they do the broadcast, and then the commentators are basically just commentating over the broadcast that's shown to them. So yeah, that's why the commentators like balked. It's like, wait, we're cutting away. Why? And then they tried to show it again, and then they cut away again. That was like literally the most exciting thing in the race.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
They cut away to Lance Stroll like hopping like one of the curbs.
Well, that's fun.
So, but yeah, that was and then you have Sergio Perez. He does like the most overcut, and he was in 8th place. And he does an overcut, comes out in 4th. Lewis Hamilton loses again. Yeah. Yeah, because like in Monaco, so like once all the guys ahead of Perez started pitting, because they were out of his way, he just started putting in blistering laps. Like it was just like fast lap after fast lap, and then like his tires were probably gone by the time he pulled in, but like he made up all that distance, came into the pit. It's Red Bull, so it's a good pit. Comes out in 4th from 8th place. So yeah, the undercut didn't work at all. The overcut worked in several occasions because I believe Giovinazzi also did an overcut, and he ended up getting in 10th place, which was the first point. You got 1 point, and it's the first point for Alfa Romeo this year. So, and that point is worth millions of dollars because I don't know if I'm not very confident in Haas or Williams getting a point. So that 1 point is probably worth literally $60 million.
Wow. What didn't it? What was his name? The one guy, Sonoda.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, didn't he have the fastest lap, but it didn't count because he'd been lapped or something? It was like
so you get a point for getting the fastest lap, but you can only get that point if you're in the top 10.
Oh, top 10. Okay.
Yeah.
I know they pointed out. He's got the fastest lap. Doesn't count. But
yeah, that's so at the end of the race, because Hamilton was like out of the points and like everything had split apart. Also, I think because he was he didn't want to get lapped by Max Verstappen because that would just be an embarrassment to him. He comes in and pits for soft tires and does the fastest lap of the race to get 1 extra point because he finished in 7th, and he beat not qualifying, but like during a race, he has the world record for a lap around Monaco, and he beat it by like a second and a half.
Wow. Wow. Put some gum on his tires.
Well, I mean, he put soft tires on and he just destroyed them in with like just a few laps to go. So
Yeah, he was just racking up some points. And then Aston Martin got some points.
yeah, a double point score, which is really good for them because especially like Vettel hasn't scored all this year, and I was like feeling really bad for him because he had such a tough time at Ferrari last year, and it was just like it just seemed like a bad story for Vettel. It's like, oh, it's all going downhill. So he came in fifth, and it's like, oh, that's good. And they're also like, I think they ended up topping Alpine and AlphaTauri. So I think they're in fourth place right now. So that was a good point haul for them. But yeah, this is like the interesting thing about Monaco is like it's one of the few places where your car doesn't necessarily matter. It's kind of all about the driver's skill and ability. Like it can kind of make up for things. And so if you qualify well, then that's pretty much where you're going to finish because there's not a lot of passing during the race. So
Yeah, this one's all about qualifying. And is this the only race
pit strategies?
Is this the only one they run like this? Most of the other tracks have passing zones.
Yeah, well, it's like they do other street courses, but like this one's the most narrow. Because like this is literally the Monaco streets. Like when they take off all the stuff, like that would be the road you drive on in Monaco.
And they've been having this race there for 90 years. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
29 was the first one.
Well, they call it the Crown Jewel, and it's probably going to be the highest rated race this year. And it's just like it's kind of sad because it's like you watched probably the most boring race. I don't know. What did you get out of it? Do you think it was because really like I haven't watched Monaco enough to really hate it. But where I grew a hatred for Monaco is in the F1 video games. Because you can't pass and it's just all about qualifying. So it's very fucking boring. So whenever I play the F1 games and I get to Monaco, I just simulate the race. I don't even bother to race it. It's like, well, this is going to suck. So I'm not bothering with this.
Which is, I think, what Lewis Hamilton did this time. He edited the race. For me, it was as someone who's a rookie to a lot of this and not like a deep fan of this and knows all the history of it. It looked cool. It looked like something out of a movie. Like if you're going to make a movie about racing, this is like the perfect backdrop. And I did like it because different people were winning. And there were some people taking some risks. And then, they spun the nut off. It's like, I always like that technical stuff. It's like, what happened there? And it's like, oh, this guy's race is over for a tire change. Like that's dramatic. But yeah, it just looked amazing. It's one of those places you dream about. Like, oh, this is so cool. Look at this place.
Yeah, those like
this
$1 billion yachts just parked next to the race.
And just like arabesque architecture and stuff that's like, this hundreds of years old. It looked cool,
Yeah.
And it's always in a James Bond movie or something. And so you know this place. For me, it was just interesting, but there wasn't a lot of like, there's no come from behind like, oh yeah, he's going to hang out in seventh and then win the race. No, it didn't happen. So that made it was visually cool.
Well, also probably, so usually what happens in Monaco is like somebody wrecks. So I think this is like the least complicated Monaco there had ever been. Like this is the fastest Monaco that's ever happened.
Oh, so they took a lot of the chicanes and stuff out of it.
No, like usually like there's wrecks and there's safety cars, so it like slows the race down.
Oh,
but there was no safety car this entire race, so nothing happened. It was just smooth sailing.
Yeah, it looked more like I was watching a movie about racing. Beautiful backdrop, and like I'm not too into the drama of the teams or the technical details. It's like, oh, this just looks cool.
Yeah.
That was my impression of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reason like there's a reason people want to watch Monaco, and then there's also a reason, like race fans are like, no, don't watch Monaco.
Yeah, if I was really into the mechanics of it, it would probably be dull.
I was one year Kimi Räikkönen, he like wrecked out of the race, and he just walked off the track and got onto his boat and started drinking.
It's just throw the helmet in the back of the boat and start getting sloshed. Yeah. Well, my race is over, and I happen to wreck right near my boat.
That's great.
Yeah, oh, that's good. That's Formula One drivers.
Yeah. Yeah, because most of them live there but for tax purposes.
Yeah, it's like a tax. Be a tax refugee there or something.
Yeah. Or, they just have his citizenships there in like a condo. They don't actually live there.
Yep, it's like the Cayman Islands, just empty multi-million-dollar rooms nobody ever lives in.
Yeah, but Carlos Sainz came in second. So yeah, Ferrari gets a podium. So that's his best finish. Oh wait, no, I guess he got second at that Monza race. Yeah, I guess we talked about everything in my notes, but and then Lando Norris got another podium this year, and that was really cool.
Yeah,
and that special golf livery, so that was worked out for them. They did something neat and worked out for them. So.
Yeah, that's fun. That classic livery. Someone explained, or I was watching something once that talked about like F1 sponsorship through the ages. Yeah. And how some of those companies like just didn't exist. It was just a way to get more money to the team.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of games being played. Like, what does this company do? It's like, well, they're actually a holding company owned by a much larger company that's sponsoring the same team also. It's like, oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird, probably criminal stuff underneath a lot of those sponsors on those teams. Like, I've never heard of that before. Is that just European? It's like, no, that's just money. That's how you funnel criminal money into an F1 enterprise.
Yeah, that's how the mob sponsors their favorite team. Sicilia or what's the big mob in France? Yeah, that one from the French Connection. I don't even know if that's still a thing. Probably is.
Yeah,
France has crazy violent crime. I've read books about it. It's amazing. It's like you think America's the Wild West, and you realize, like France, they have wild ass crime there all the time. They just don't talk about it unless it's terrorism. You don't hear about it. But they also do weird things like, let's move 100 million euros in a semi and see who tries to rob it. It's like, why are you moving the money this way? Well, you have to physically have it under our laws. It's like, oh, so this is why guys show up with RPGs and special forces people or former special forces people. France is a cool place.
I think no, it's not the next race is Baku, which is also a street race, but it has long straights, so there's actually places to pass. But it does get pretty narrow on the street parts, and also like a part of the race goes through a castle gate, so that's kind of fun.
Nice. That's the one that's in like
Azerbaijan, I think.
Yeah,
right?
One of the former Soviet countries.
I think that's Baku. Oh, and then there's like some drama with the flexi wing stuff. So you had people like want to start protesting against Red Bull with their rear wing that kind of flexes back, and like, oh, that's probably letting more air through. And then the Christian Horner was talking about, I was like, well, if you want to talk about that, let's talk about Mercedes front wing. And I saw some video of that, and it's like, I don't know if it's really flexing. And then he like takes a turn, and like the front wing, one of the blades does this weird thing where it just like rises up and twists, and like, what the fuck is that?
Magic. It just happened. We didn't know I was going to do that. Holy shit.
So
they need to get a real like American redneck. It's like the team boss of one of the Formula One teams, just not knowing anything about it. Just like someone who's a NASCAR guy.
Yeah.
But he gets weird, like folksy interviews to the European press. It's just like an Alabama accent. Meanwhile, they're cheating their ass off, and they're just laughing at the guy. It's like, yeah, but he's winning.
Well, that's always the thing in F1 is like everyone's cheating, and then just everybody's waiting to blink to who's going to tell them who they first.
Yeah, it's be a weird culture of who's gonna fuck who first?
Where it seems like, because like the other teams, like, why Christian Horner knew that, it's because like their team is investigating all the other teams, and so they have dirt on Mercedes, and they're just waiting, and the FIA is like, hey, what are you guys doing over there? It's like, nothing.
Wait for the press conference. Yeah, Formula One's had some stuff go on where I've watched documentary after documentary, especially stuff in the 70s and 80s. It's like, oh, everyone had to be in on this, including the sanctioning body. Like, there's no way nobody knew this shit wasn't going on.
But yeah, so after this race, so Max Verstappen takes a 4-point lead in the championship, which has probably been the first time since like 2013.
Wow. Okay.
That well, I guess maybe when Nico Rosberg, but yeah, it's been a long, because there was when Vettel was a Ferrari, there was some really close. There was a really close season, like for the first half, like they were trading who was the winner, but then the last half, like Lewis Hamilton just took it. But yeah, it's been a while since somebody other than Lewis Hamilton has led the championship. But also, Red Bull now leads the construction championship by 1 point.
Oh.
Which doesn't help when Bottas has now DNF'd out of 2 races, and both of them weren't his faults. Bottas just has the worst luck in the world.
How long has it been since Mercedes wasn't the head of the Constructors' Championship?
2009, 10, 11, since 2013.
Okay, so about the same time. Okay.
Yeah, well, like I think I forget, because like I think the Mercedes always led the constructor, but for the drivers' championship, there was that couple years where Vettel and Hamilton were like back and forth.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's been for the last 7 years. It's been Mercedes has won it. Then there's 4 years with Red Bull, and then before that, it was 2 years with Renault, I think. No, it was Ferrari for Kimi Räikkönen, and then Lewis Hamilton won one for McLaren in there, and then before that it was like 2 that for Renault. That's the Fernando Alonso won 2 championships in a row.
Oh, okay.
And then before that, it was like, I don't know, there was a bunch of weird ones. Yeah, there was also I saw some stuff about the weirdest Monaco race ever. I think his name is Olivier Panis. He won Monaco, and it was a rainy Monaco, and only 3 cars finished the race.
Oh, I think it was 96 or something.
Yeah.
They had all the cars was just corpses all over the tracks. Not dead people. Lots of
no. Yeah, a lot of they just like because it's slow down and run into it and break their wheel. There was a couple of cars where they just like they blew their engine. Like 2 of them just blew their engine. It was just so it wasn't necessarily all people spinning off the track, but it was a lot of that.
Yeah. All right, so there's a video game you were telling me about.
Yeah, there's the new PS5 video game Returnal.
Okay.
Which
combination of 2 words.
Yeah. Well, I remember like they do something. I remember they first showed it, like some press of it, and like the way the words came up, it was like it looked like ret anal or something like that. Like, what's going on here? It's like, oh, Returnal. So yeah, here's a fun thing about new video games is that they're pretty much all going to be $70 now. So
they've got that price increase in there.
Well, I think it might be just. I think it might just be. So this is a PS5 exclusive. So I think for like the exclusives, they're going to be $70. So because they, to make up more of the money that they're not going to be able to sell it on other systems, and then the other like third party developers, like it's kind of up to them what they're going to charge. So I don't think anybody third party has charged $70 yet, but the door's open. So
yeah.
So it's pretty. It's a roguelike. So, or I guess a roguelite technically. Yeah, it's basically it's a third person shooter. You go through the game and then like you're meant to die and start the game over again. And so this lady goes to a planet and she's investigating it, and then she dies and then wakes up where she like crashed again. And so like every time she dies, she wakes up with this crash, and then she's like going through the level, and then she'll find like her other bodies there. And so that's part of the story. So it's mostly gameplay, but that's how they weave the story is like when you're finding your other bodies, the planet does something weird where it's kind of like investigating your mind, and so her childhood home is just like somewhere on this planet, like it just builds it.
Okay.
Because all the levels are randomized, but it's kind of like they have like the level each kind of like section is the same. It's just like how they organize it is different. So like when you get to the part where her house is in the level, it's like it always looks exactly the same. It's just like different where it is in the level. And then like it seems like she has some like kind of some distress in her life, and so that's not great on a planet that's trying to like read your mind and bring forth your innermost thoughts when your innermost thoughts are dark and trying to kill you.
Yeah. When your life was a nightmare before. Yeah.
And then like you find like this weird hive mind where it's like you see that these aliens are also going through the same thing where like they keep dying and returning and like they're going crazy. Also, this isn't like the first time she's done it. Like it's like a weird spiral. So it's like where you come into this, it's not the start of it. It's just like it's wherever so like she'll find audio logs of herself, and like it doesn't sound like her at all. It's like, so this radio message she's getting, this is her like way off in the future, or no, way a long time ago, but she sounds completely different because like it's just weird how it all works together. It's not linear.
Okay.
And so you go through like these 3 different levels, and you defeat these bosses, and you get to the last one, you defeat the boss, and then like you get a radio signal out to Astra, which is kind of like the NASA or whatever, and then they pick you up. You go back home. She lives her life, dies of old age, and wakes up back on the planet.
What's interesting to name a planet after the Greek god of destiny and fate. Like, yeah, it's subtle.
But yeah, it's a pretty neat game. I've been playing it on Twitch, trying to get that going. I've been trying to do this gimmick where basically I get play the piano while I'm playing the game. I just add in, but like I have no viewers, so there's nobody to play the piano for. So. Because it's actually like you have to like, if you want to like get like money out of it, you have to become a partner, but which actually doesn't take a whole lot. It's like you play you do 8 hours of video a week, and then you just need to have at least 3 people in the room, or you need to average 3 people in the room for like a week or something like that, and then you can make partner.
Huh.
But then there's another level above where it's like associate or something like that. But yeah, but anyways, but I got the whole piano thing to work on there, so that's good. And the video quality seems to be pretty good as far as what I'm told. So.
Well, that's good.
Then I don't know what. I don't know. I probably need to set up a camera. I need to set up a camera just like on the keyboard, because like the thing is, I don't necessarily want to talk. Like that's the whole gimmick. It's like if you want to see me talk, I'm here. But like I want the gimmick to be like it's just like I talk with a piano. So maybe I should set up a camera to just look at the key. Well, also like that's why I got this red lighting and stuff like that, where I can like do more production stuff, just so I know how to do that. Because we've made this pretty streamlined where it's like we don't really have to do a whole lot of production stuff. We used to have to do like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we've kind of simplified a lot of things that are happening.
Just like used to like I mean, we used to edit like ums and stuff like that out of the show, and it's like nobody cares. It's not like somebody's not gonna.
We don't usually get hung up either anymore.
No, but
Because before it was like, okay, on to the what's next. Because we're 5 minutes in. Well, we've just ran through all our material.
I mean, we used to edit like skits and segments and put music in, and now we just don't want to do that because we'll get weird rights things and we used to. I remember like the most complicated one I did for this show is like something weird happened with my computer, and during my record, like basically every minute, it would just like not record a half a second of audio. Like, it was just gone.
Yeah.
So then, like when you went to go like line them up, your side and my side, they didn't line up because mine had been condensed artificially. So I had to go in and make like 80 chops to my video or my audio and just like spread it out so it synced up throughout the show.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So that was probably the most crazy production thing I've done for the show.
Oh, I listen to podcasts where people are making $500,000 a month on Patreon, and they'll stop right in the middle, like what someone's mic's not working, and they'll just go through all that live. Okay, who's my talk? Go ahead and say something. Talk, and these guys are making like more money in a month than I make in 10 years. It's like, well, yeah, see, they got problems too. But they're also like comedians and stuff, so they.
Yeah. Well, something recently I got this thing where I get the voice meter Banana to work, so then I can combine like all USB inputs into like one input.
Yeah.
That's where I can do things where I could put two USB mics on the computer, and like I could have one for somebody else, the other mic, and that would supposedly work, but because usually you can't do two USB mics on a computer without software like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can if you have like a board. What do you call that? A mixing board.
Yeah,
You can do stuff
mixing
like
board.
that.
That thing I have, yeah.
There's also been like weird like backlash against like these Yetis, these blue Yetis, where it's like, oh, you got a blue Yeti, and like everyone has one. It's like, what? They're like they're affordable and they sound good. Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got a really expensive microphone, but it's like it doesn't make me more talented.
Yeah.
Just makes my voice sound cool.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, but there's like some people. It's just like a weird, like thing to like get caught up on, and like because like oh, you don't have a Shure microphone and a preamp and this mixing board, and it's like, well, I'm not throwing $5,000 at this.
You don't have a vacuum tube driven, mic amplifier. Where you got to get the vacuum tubes from Russia and they're hand delivered by Jesus to your door. It's like, yeah.
Nope.
Welcome to the Money Cast, where we spend money on a podcast.
But that's kind of the we have kind of a split expertise on this show where it's like you kind of do it one way, I do it one way, and we mix it together, and so we know more. We know how to do more stuff together.
I just have an ultra simplified way of doing it.
Yeah.
Even though my friend, who's actually a recording engineer, is like, "What are you doing, God, Nathan? This is like." It's like, well, it works. It's like, what's one way of working? It's not the best way.
I remember I used to record with the shotgun mic, which I've even heard episodes like that. Those old episodes, I bet they sound terrible because it just picks up everything. But it was cool to like have the mic like 6 feet away from you and just have everybody like pointing in the direction of everybody. It's like, well, it works.
This functions. Oh. Yeah, that's... I haven't looked at podcast gear in years. I replaced the soundboard when the other one just quit working.
Yeah.
After I'd gone through every channel.
Yeah, you have like weird support issues for like Apple doesn't support your driver anymore or some shit like that. Yeah.
Well, no, this was the soundboard just physically failed. It was just
okay.
Just actually the potentiometers started going out, which they do. Especially when I sit here and grind on plastic the rest of the week, like building. Even though I do cover it, it's like, yeah, it doesn't make a difference. Because I just kept moving over. because it only had 3 or 4, 5. I know it had 5 channels. So as one would fail, I just moved to the next channel, then moved to the next channel. Pretty soon I was out of channels. It's like, well, I got to go buy a new one. And it was only like $390 for a new one. So, and it'll last 10 years, and then go get another one. No, the support issues were. Yeah, that's when I was on the talking to that guy from Google.
Oh, yeah, you had weird browser issues.
Yeah, it was like weird. Well, I'm also using a Mac that's like 9 years old. So that doesn't help. How old is this one? This is pretty old. Still works. I'm not buying another one. So. Because they don't make anything better than this, really. I mean, they do, but it's like not that much better because they've kind of given up on these. They have those real flat ones now, but they're smaller than this.
Huh.
Those the new Mac, where it's like all different colors of the rainbow cases and stuff.
Trying to go back to the old Jelly Bean iMac.
Well, it's like as thin as an iPhone. Like it's just really thin screen.
But it's like the idea, the original iMac, where it's like, get them in all these different colors.
Yeah, it comes in like 15 different colors or whatever. It's they still make mine, the old standby, but they don't, because of COVID and stuff. They don't have any in stores.
Yeah,
because every time I check on one, it's like not available.
Well, also like the chip issue. Chip stuff's going to be an issue too. So
yeah, that's going to get really bad.
Although they have their own stuff, but it's still supply constrained. You know, they don't make every chip on that board, so that's the chip that's constrained. We need this Toshiba chip. Like, oh, they're all gone.
Yeah, this is going to lead to a lot of changes in a lot of industry, especially my industry. But a lot of industries are I think they're going to start coming up with different design ideas that are less dependent on all this stuff.
Is it just a production issue, or is it like...
It's a production issue from what I understand.
Because I know there's always a thing like...
It's really vague when you try to dig into it.
Well, I know there's always that thing about like, you know, like, why do we do all the electronics in China? It's like, oh, because they have all the rare earth metals you need to make all this shit. So it's like just...
It's not just the 1 penny a year labor cost.
Yeah.
Also, they have a lot of expertise over there just in that.
Yeah.
No, they're not good at like infrastructure or feeding themselves, but they got like 15 PhDs in like silicon dynamics or something, you know. And maybe one of those guys had an original idea, but you know, that's China. It's a strange place like that. We're going to do what you do, but we're going to do it badly, but cheaper. That's our hook. It's like, yeah, for a planet running out of food, space, and air, that's a good plan. We're just going to do everything worse and cheaper.
I always like that stuff where they plan ahead and they just build a city with the anticipation of like a growing, and then it just sits there. It's like this, they built Vegas and 3 people live there.
Their military does shit like that too.
Yeah,
they'll build like big underground military bases they want to house, because I guess their missile fields are very vulnerable to us or any foreign aggressor wiping them out with like just first strike. Nuclear weapons would basically wipe out. They don't have a lot of nuclear missiles, so they built a lot of deep underground bases to silo their missiles in. And then the design, something changed with their missiles where they're a lot more compact now and they're not as heavy and big. So then they can't use those bases. So they're just, I'll leave it. Fuck it. Yeah, they love building stuff, and China loves fixed fortifications and shit like that. That's like their ethos. It goes back to the Great Wall and even before. Because that's one of the things. Like when that was like, why did the Japanese almost overrun China in World War II? It's like, well, because the Chinese were using like fixed military formations and stuff. They were fighting like a war from 20 years ago, and the Japanese just run around the end of them and kill them all. They also weren't very well armed either. Neither were the Japanese comparatively, but they had better tactics. And also there was a civil war going on in China at the time they were invaded, so that makes, a lot of...
That was also killing hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, millions of people. Yeah, China came out of World War II like 35 million people light. I mean, that's just a project. We don't know. That's just a projection, but it's like, wow. And everyone's like, well, the Russians lost 20 million. Isn't that horrible? It's like, well, go ask the Chinese about that.
Yeah, there's some video out there where like it shows like the sort of the just how vast the destruction of World War II is, and it's just incorporated as body counts, and it's like, yeah, it's like well, here's England, here's America. It's like, oh, that went up pretty high. It's like, here's Germany. It's like, oh, that's pretty big. And then like it's like Russia. Like, how about China?
Yeah, because it just has like columns of like men, like just like little silhouettes, and like 500,000 people died in America fighting World War II. Wow, that's a lot. 200,000 people died in the UK. That's a huge number considering how small they are. And then you like go to Germany. It's like, well, that's big, but that makes sense because they kind of started the war. And then there's like Russia. It's like it dwarfs all the others. Like they just move off screen.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, it can't get much worse than this. Oh, China. Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh.
And then they had two cultural revolutions after the communists took over in the 50s where they killed about 25 million more people. And that just when you try to comprehend 25 million people dead, it's like, how many earth movers and fires do you need to have for that number of people? You just throw them all in the river. They just float down the Yangtze River out into the ocean. I mean, how do you get rid of that many bodies?
Yeah.
That is a ridiculous quantity of corpses. Now, they didn't all happen in one day, but
no.
Yeah, I've seen that graphic. They did one based on World War III. It's like, what would the casualties be like? Actually, it wasn't as high as you'd think, but I don't know what kind of war. I think they were basing on a war that would end like in 3 days or something, not something that would go on for years.
Yeah, I was like seeing the how they do the death count stuff. It's like those videos where it's like, here's how big Earth is. Here's how big the sun is. Here's how big this other sun is compared to our sun. It just keeps dwarfing everything.
Yeah, like you could fit 250,000 Earths in the sun, and you're like, wow, that's I don't know how many, but a lot. Yeah. And then you go to like, and here's Betelgeuse primary, and you put 15,000 of our suns in it. It's like, that's incomprehensibly huge. And here's a black hole. And here's the sound made when two black holes collide. It's like, what? That happens? And we're not all dead?
Well, you ever see the simulations of when the Milky Way and Alpha Centauri are supposed to collide together in, hundreds of millions of years from now? Because they make it so like, oh, our galaxies are going to collide. That sounds like hugely devastating. But then like, I mean, it probably will be because like the gravitational forces. But basically how it's simulated, it's like there's so much space and nothingness. Like mostly everything is just going to miss each other.
Yeah.
Like there'll be like some planets' trajectories will change and maybe things will get picked up here and there. But mostly everything is just going to miss each other.
Yeah, it's not going to be like a car crash at 100 miles an hour. And then when you realize like what scale that is, and then they had some graphic up the other day of the Wright brothers Kitty Hawk flyer, and it said 67 years later we were doing this, and it showed the moon landing. Yeah, that's okay. That's some people, if you told them there was 200 years difference in that, they'd probably believe it. It's like, no, that happened pretty quickly, actually. Of course, we had a couple world wars in there, and that kind of advances the pace of technology a little bit. But also, when you compare that to like transversing light speed, those are like bunny hops. It's like, but they said we couldn't go faster than sound, and there were people that's like, yeah, we got math to prove that's not possible, and then somebody did it. Like, well, back to the old drawing board. But yeah, that's. And then you hear all this stuff about what's the weirdest shit I heard about? Like dark matter and 0 point energy and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, all those dark matter, those voids in space, like that's just, matter and matter annihilating itself over and over again. If only we could capture that, we could have infinite energies. Like that sounds cool. How do we do that? Well, we don't know. It's like, well, how do you even know it fucking exists then? It just, well, math. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
Well, I forget. Yeah, it's like something they can figure out, like the weight of the universe, which is mind-boggling. And then, but like they know there's like, well, there's all this shit that's missing, but we know it's there. That's what dark matter is.
Yeah.
It's basically undefinable. It's basically like, well, we know there should be all this shit in the universe, but we don't have the tools to look at it. So whatever, it's all dark matter.
Yeah, it was. This guy was. I forget. Someone was talking about it, and it was like, yeah, if you had a spaceship that weighed 1,000,000 tons, like that was just for some reason. If you had one that weighed 1,000,000 tons, like how much energy it would take, even if we could make fusion work to move that thing a foot. It was like some preposterous amount of energy. But if you had 0 point technology and you could capture dark matter, you could move that ship very quickly, almost an infinite amount of energy. It's like, what?
Now, what's 0 point technology? Is that like Mass Effect?
It's something that, they've been talking, it's like this shit you'll find out like in quantum physics, like they've been talking about it since the 60s, but now it's kind of got some pop culture terms thrown on it. So instead of becoming like, Razanov's theory of, matter in the universe, it becomes dark matter and 0 point and all that. But yeah, It's basically if you could magnetically capture dark matter with the annihilation creation effect going on constantly, it releases a huge amount of energy. How you bottle that and use it, I don't know.
Dilithium crystals,
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's always liked about Mass Effect is like, well, how do you do light speed travel? And it's like, well, we have these weird magical fields called Mass Effect, which reduces your weight to nothingness, and so you can accelerate it at the speed of light via ancient technology left by aliens. You don't know what happened to them.
Like Star Trek, it was always
Subspace, right?
well, yeah, that was how you transmitted like information. But like the drives in Star Trek are based on gravity compression. That's why it's called warp drive.
Okay, yeah.
It warps gravity in space. Essentially does what they did in Event Horizon, but doesn't open the gate to hell. And they're using matter, antimatter as the energy source, which at that time was considered infinite. Now we understand a little bit more about it. But yeah, that's like that idea of like warp drive, that's been around since like the 30s. Like people were theorizing like, well, if you have mass, you can't move at the speed of light, except unless you compress space-time with gravity manipulation and create a warp field that then the starship can travel through.
And then you need your
the ships aren't traveling that fast. They're in a warp field that is propelling them along.
Oh, what's the thing that keeps everyone alive during warp speed?
Inertial dampening, which nobody can explain.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you shunt all this inertia to? Well, we don't. It works great. Where's this inertia going? What if it was like killing people in another universe? Like Star Trek starships were just shunting all their inertia, and in other universes, people would just flatten out like pancakes randomly because they were shunting their inertia into a weird universe.
They should do that like really unnecessarily dark episode of Discovery where like they shut down the inertia dampers on some shit and it just evaporates everybody on the inside.
They did that on The Next Generation.
Did they? Okay.
Romulan ship, because the inertial dampers quit working. Now, of course, the ship was floating around in pieces, and they're like, "What happened?" It's like, "Oh, their inertial dampers failed." Really? How did that happen? I don't know. That's like the last, like your life support systems will fail before that because that's a critical. They had a whole episode about it, but they never explained anything. It turned out it was the Romulans in some plot to try to shut down Federation dampening fields so they could defeat our fleets easily. But that's one of those forgettable episodes.
But that was the one idea retained. It's like, that was a cool idea. They didn't do anything with it, though.
Yeah, no, it all, that was the next generation. Was continuity did not become a huge thing until much later.
No. I mean, they're pumping out 26 episodes a year. So.
Yeah, let's work on this continuity, guys. Get to it. Yeah, you're only filming like 4 episodes out of order just to get all the scenes in.
Fuck, it's going straight to syndication. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, just throw it out there. That's what broke all those people. That's why hardly any of them acted after that. It's like, I can't do this anymore. Working 80 hours a week on a TV show. Because they don't even make TV shows like that anymore. So
No.
everything's 12 episodes.
Well, like, it used to be the golden rule or whatever. It was like 7 seasons and 100 episodes because that's how you got your sweet, sweet syndication money.
Yep. That's how you get that sweet Seinfeld loot where you never have to do anything the rest of your life. You can just yell out the N-word in a comedy club and just not float along perfectly fine. Well, your career's over. Yeah, but I got Seinfeld.
Well, time to start my vacation.
This is the kickoff of my vacation right here in this comedy club. Yeah, that was a different era of television and movie. Speaking of different era, we watched a movie this week.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to confess, I forgot to watch the movie.
Okay.
So I speed watched it and read the wiki online. So
Oh, okay.
it was, although weirdly enough, so I went to Just Watch. I was like, where can I watch this? And TNT had it on their website. And this was the last day you can watch it. So I went through that just in time.
Yeah, this was kind of a what would I call this? This was Robert Zemeckis' tribute to the film Casablanca.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, part of this film's set in Casablanca.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool movie. I've seen that, and I could appreciate the.
Well, it's mostly this like built around a love story about these people have to pretend to be a marriage and then they actually get married. That's kind of like the crux of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and he's a Canadian Air Force pilot.
A wing commander. It was his rank at the beginning.
Working with the French resistance. Now, someone said this movie was originally intended to be Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was written for that, but then of course they're not together anymore. So
Yeah, some of the criticism I saw was that they said there's no chemistry between the lead actors and actress. So.
yeah, well, I could sort of see that.
Oh, there was a funny that
she's a French actor who I think she grasped the script English well, but sometimes when she was speaking and the things she was saying didn't seem to jive with her like facial expressions. It's like, wait a minute, talking about like a horrible acts of betrayal, and you're trying to, you know.
Well, I heard there was an interesting thing on the Action Boys. They were talking about how like sometimes like chemistry, like sometimes when like 2 actors like hate each other. Because of like that intensity, like on screen it reads as like as chemistry, like it was an intense love, and they really just like fucking hate each other.
Yeah, look, they're really into each other. No, that's rage. Not love, that's rage.
Which I don't know if that's true, but that sounds like interesting if true.
It probably is true. Well, that's why some actors or directors are horrible human beings. But they get great performances out of people because that's all they're interested in. I mean, they don't, you know, they're not really care if they're good or bad. They just, they don't want to be, what is it?
They care about the end result. They don't care about what it takes to get there.
Yeah, they just use everyone along the way, which, you know, sounds like a lot of Hollywood psychopaths.
Yeah. Well, if they had unlimited time and budget, they'd probably be nicer, but because they don't, it's like, fuck, we gotta get this done.
I need everyone in a rage all the time.
You're destroying my dreams.
So yeah, this movie, like I said, was a kind of a weird homage to Casablanca. and it's sort of shot and filmed like an old movie. Like it's meant to look like, in terms of costuming and stuff like this. This is a great period movie. It's like, right, it's set in 1942.
Yeah.
It definitely gets the look of everything right as far as the costumes, but there's also like long scenes of people walking, needlessly interspersed with like meetings that are unnecessarily wordy. It's like, oh yeah, this is like an old movie where they just fill a lot of shit in. And then some of the CG cities and scenes in the distance and like the sandstorm don't blend as well as usually Robert Zemeckis can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was limited by budget, time, or just wasn't done very well. I don't know what it is, because a lot of things looked weird in this movie with the costuming, the acting, the dialogue was pretty good.
Well, like especially in the opening, it was like, it's like, well, this looks good, but this also looks fake. Is he just standing in a green screen? I was like, I don't know if they just kind of shot things in like a soft out of focus, and like, well, in reality, this looked really cool, but we kind of like put too much artistic spin on it, and now it looks fake.
Well, I heard a lot of this was shot like in actual houses, but the like the location filming was all just green screen behind that.
That makes sense.
And
because I think they shot this like all in London, so
yeah.
So a lot of the outdoor stuff was probably just green screen.
Yeah, and for some reason, unusually for Robert Zemeckis, it didn't look good. It took you out of the movie, not because you're looking for things, but because it's right there. It's like, well, that's obviously not a real skyline. Like, they shot this in a house in London, but instead of having like the weird penis-shaped buildings and weird architecture they have in London, they had to make it look like all the old brick stuff in World War II, and they didn't do it very well. It looked like a screensaver on a computer almost, with a Brad Pitt imposed in the front of it. It was like, this is weird. And the movie cost $100 million to make, so, or yeah, it was about $100 million. So yeah, it was kind of that took you out of it. And then again, the weird homage to 30s and 40s filmmaking, where you have lots of people walking and cameras from behind them, kind of over the shoulder, and then we're walking and we're walking and we're walking, and then we're going to have a meeting. We're going to be intense. And it is an intense meeting. It's like, we need you to kill your wife because she's fucking not in a good way. So that was, everyone acted fine, but it just didn't seem like a movie that really, it didn't carry me away. Like, oh, okay, this is fun. And the story was sort of predictable because you knew everyone was trying to deceive everyone else. And then how it ended up was like, well, yeah, you knew it was going to end this way. Even though you didn't have a lot of clues, but you did, because you knew everyone was lying. And it was also a very exceptionally violent movie for a Robert Zemeckis film.
Yeah.
A lot of people getting, chopped up with machine guns and just, crazy violence.
When they assassinate those people, then there's just like one guy she shoots in the head, and he's still just like blood still just coming out of his head like 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
There's that weird bit where like they shoot some people, and then they just start shooting up the building, and like the guards come in. It was like, were they shooting up the building just to get the guards to come in? Like, I don't know what they were doing there. It's like, we just gotta be violent, whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of what I call the overloud gun violence, where we're going to be talking and we're going to have a moment, and it's like, okay, spring into action, and then the gunfire sounds like artillery going off, and people that just exploding into pools of blood, and it's like, is this a style choice, or is this just, okay, we're going to get through this scene?
Like, what were those, like Sten guns or something they had?
Yeah, those
like
British, yeah.
They had like the double magazine where they flip it around.
Yeah, taped together. Sten guns were great. I think those were guns that were mainly made out of stamped metal.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a hand. Doesn't even have a handle.
No, it's just got a wire stock, and you just wrap your hands around it. I mean, that was like we're being bombed and running out of resources. British technology. And
then they turned all those into Star Wars guns.
When we make guns, when America makes guns in World War II, they're made out of wood and they weigh 7.5 pounds and fire like ridiculous amounts of ammunition through them before they go bad. But when the British make guns, it's like, we got to stamp metal, boys. They're torpedoing all the supply ships from America. So yeah, that's where you get up with the Sten gun. And we tried to make stuff like that, but anyway, it's not.
Well, yeah, we had the grease gun. Like we made millions of those or whatever.
Yeah, we mainly
like,
gave those to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're like they made a bunch of different guns because like not everybody got an M1 Garand, even though that was like the most technological rifle of the war.
Yeah,
or technologically advanced rifle of the war. Most people got like, what was the
Springfield bolt actions.
Yeah, or like the M1A ones, the one that fired the 30-30 round. Like a lot of guys got those.
Oh yeah. I've heard one of those. Those are cacophonously loud. That 30 caliber round is really loud.
Yeah. Well, they're meant for machine guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make the handgun version. It's called like an Automag 3 or something like that.
They made a 30 caliber handgun. Yeah. Oh Jesus! Hold on to that.
Well, there's the Automag 3, which uses a 30-30, and then there's Automag 5, which uses the 50 caliber round, and like the 51 fires because the Demolition Ranch guy has one, and like so he says the 50s like kicks harder. But the ridiculous thing about the 30-30 rounds, because that's meant for like a rifle barrel, like most of it is just a fireball coming out of the end of the gun.
It's a huge explosion because all this unspent powder hasn't had time to build pressure behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are cool. Those look cool on camera. He has who made those? Was that Kunanen?
No, I think the company is called Automag.
Automag.
Yeah.
Oh, the California. Oh, the ones with the ribbing on the top of the barrels.
Yeah.
They use like a lockup from a rifle, but it was like a semi-automatic rifle, but it was built into a handgun. Yeah, I think that's the one. It's like California. California Arms or somebody made those.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
No. But yeah, anyway, so this movie was exceptionally violent for Robert Zemeckis' film. And downbeat.
Yeah.
But even though you kind of knew where it was going, it was still like, oh, okay. He does
Well, I mean, that is the most...
daughter to Canada to raise her on a ranch.
I mean, it's like, what's the most interesting twist? I mean, like, if this movie has a happy ending, it's boring. But no, it has, like, that's the most interesting twist. But it's also, like, not necessarily that interesting. You didn't really necessarily care by the end of it. It's like...
It's boring... Bottom line, it's a boring movie with some good visuals, but not that good of visuals.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Almost like Star Trek The Phantom Menace type city visuals. It's like, that's not real because that's science fiction, and London's not real because it looks weird.
It's probably a mixture of like we're gonna use like real costuming and like the interiors are gonna be really well built, and then you're gonna have this weird artistic CGI around it that just makes it not fit.
So it looks like a screensaver with like green screen actors in it or something. I don't regret watching it just because I can, for completion's sake, but I'll never watch it again.
No.
There's no reason to watch it again.
I remember seeing the trailer for it. It's like, oh, that another World War II thing. It's Zemeckis. Like, this will probably be well done. And there's okay stuff, but it's not. It's a bunch of ideas. It is an homage film, and so it's a bunch of ideas. So if you've seen Casablanca, if you've seen The Maltese Falcon, if you've seen all those big movies that everyone knows, it's like, oh yeah, this is the same thing, but not as, I mean, those were actual period costumes they were wearing there. They just took those uniforms off dead Germans, put them on. There you go. Some of those movies predated the Nazis, but yeah. So it was okay. Nothing stood out in it. No. It
was Brad Pitt kind of doing Brad Pitt. It was kind of like Ad Astra Brad Pitt in World War II.
Yeah.
The guy, I'm here. What's going to happen next? How am I going to look at the camera?
Did he do Fury before or after this? That probably didn't help it either.
Good question. Yeah, I bet you people were expecting Fury. Let me see.
I'm gonna say before.
Yeah, because this was 2016. Yeah, of course, we've got to have like a essay. I just want to see what movies he made. He can see his kids again. I know that. See, this is those. Remember how we said we don't have dead time, then we have a bunch of dead time. It's like, yeah, we've defeated that monster, and here it comes again.
Well, I had muted my mic because I thought I was gonna sneeze. So then I was like, and then I didn't. So I had a weird pause myself as you were searching, Internet Movie Database for when Fury came out.
Yeah. I still remember his first movie I remember seeing Brad Pitt in was that California with a K.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
think what was the other one? The detective movie, the dark one.
07?
Yeah, that's like 7 and 12 Monkeys is when I picked up on Brad Pitt, and then he did Fight Club.
I think I remember him when he did Thelma and Louise, which that's like one of his very first roles.
Oh, okay. Fury was 2014, and then Allied was 2016.
Okay, yeah. Probably didn't help. Fury's definitely a better movie.
Yeah. Fury's
I mean,
a fun.
I mean, this is kind of interesting that it's like it's about Canadian intelligence, but then they don't. I didn't necessarily sit there and watch the movie, but I don't think they necessarily do anything. That's more just costuming. Like it didn't necessarily add up to anything special.
Well, yeah, because he had like an RAF type uniform.
Yeah.
Because you knew you couldn't get Brad Pitt to do a British accent the whole movie. It wouldn't be an American character because we had our own people doing our own things. We wouldn't work with British intelligence in that level at that time unless it was big stuff. I mean, we didn't know that they'd cracked the Enigma code, I think, until almost the end of the war, and they didn't know about the atomic bomb until I think after we set it off. It's like, so. Oh, yeah, by the way, we got a surprise for you. But yeah, I think Brad Pitt being a Canadian Air Force officer in World War II is just convenient to the plot. It's like, oh, we can film this in England. We don't have to have Brad Pitt do a... He could have done that accent he did from Snatch. It was the Irish traveler accent where he couldn't understand a word he said.
Yeah, well, apparently that the guy who wrote the story, this was like somebody told him this story when he was from World War II, and so and then he kind of just like
ran with it.
Yeah, did some of his own stuff, and so this is sort of an homage to like whoever, like I don't know, maybe like a grandpa or somebody that told him the story.
Yeah.
Who knows if it's true or not? I didn't look that up. But.
No, I actually didn't either. I thought it was just his work of fiction. So
yeah, as far as yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's not based on anything. But the screenplay is based on a conversation you had with somebody from World War II. At least that's just a bit of trivia I saw. Like I said, I didn't fully watch this movie and.
Yeah, I watched it while I was building a gantry for a V2 rocket. So.
But it's not that long. I think it's just 2 hours.
Yeah, it manages to. It's not as long as it seems.
Yeah. Probably not a good thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, I was not in love with this, but I don't hate watching it. But it's like, yep,
yeah.
I've done this. Check this off the list, boys.
Well, yeah, we're in the downside of his career, so there's going to be a lot of disappointment. So.
A lot of weird choices for an obviously intelligent guy, but
yeah,
and that happens.
We'll see if we crack the code as to what happened to Robert Zemeckis. Because so far I haven't investigated like personally what's happened to his life. We're just watching his movies and like what the movie production was like. I don't know what's happening with his personal life, but he was somebody who I would say is as talented as Steven Spielberg, and at one time was as talented, and seems to have fallen away.
Yeah.
Because like even Spielberg can still like put out a pretty good movie, so. But he's Steven Spielberg, so.
People get old and priorities change. That's
Yeah.
about all I can come up with. I know my priorities have changed.
And also, like, it seems like Steven Spielberg is Steven Spielberg, so he can direct whatever the fuck he wants. Robert Zemeckis can't.
He doesn't have the name recognition, the multi-billion-dollar franchises in his background, but he's had some very successful movies, and he can make an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
I think a lot with him is, if I were to theorize, let's talk about this movie because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. Is this just seems like kind of we're getting outside our comfort zone? Because we're doing period pieces now, and we're doing like kind of we're going to do an homage to
like you think of like
that time, and we're going to have
Well,
a boring story.
you have like Castaway, which is a serious movie, but there's still like fun stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then you have the 3 animated movies, which is like, yeah, I'm just making movies for my kids.
Yeah.
We have Flight, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And so with this, it seems like he was trying to like make serious adult movies, and maybe he can't. Like maybe he can't make a movie that is without humor.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a humorless movie. But it also, I don't know. I just think he got outside his zone.
Yeah.
Especially with this one, you can really see it. Like, so we're not even talking about the animated stuff because it's not like, you can throw haymakers at that all you want, but it's just basically that's entertainment for children. It's like if you're angry about children's entertainment.
Well, even you go to like What Lies Beneath, where it's like there's some humor in that movie, but they're like the tension and suspense in that movie is like world class.
Oh yeah.
And I like I don't know how would you compare? Is the tension in this movie world class, or is it just kind of there?
The tension in this movie is based a lot on eye contact and kind of dialogue where you don't know who's lying to you. Like in What Lies Beneath You, there was the kind of the insinuation that this woman might be crazy, and that the husband really is a good guy, and you were able to kind of suspend like, okay, all this kooky supernatural shit is like a manifestation of her mental illness or whatever. And then it turns out like it twists on you in the end. It's like, oh no, he's really a bad guy. There is some supernatural kookiness, but it's at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, he was a bad guy, and you almost felt for him during the movie. With this, it's like you already know. It's like this is a story about betrayal and lies, and you know that he's in love and she's gonna betray him, and it's like you don't invest anything in the characters in this movie because you kind of know. And that's my criticism. Maybe other people were just blown away by the direction of the story, but maybe they weren't watching it either. If they were, I don't know, because it doesn't seem to. It doesn't carry me away to a world where it's like I want to know what happens to these people. It's like I already know what they're doing, and it's written so that you know what they're doing. So I don't understand what the point of this was. What kind of story were you trying to tell? But I don't think that this was, like you said, maybe adult entertainment isn't it? And by adult, I mean movies for adults. Robert Zemeckis 3D porn.
Beowulf fucks.
We'll show you what goes on in the dark car on the Polar Express. And the train just has a big Q symbol on the front. I knew it. Speaking of which, off topic a little bit. Did you hear CNN? I was watching something on CNN not even 2 hours ago that said, like, QAnon is most common, what is it, the most common thing? Like 25% of people who identify themselves as conservative believe that. But it's like, is that true? Is that an exaggeration? What is that?
Sometimes if it's a poll, those things can be.
Yeah, well, they ask 5
skewed.
people. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Because when I hear that, that's terrifying to me. It's like, oh man, I'm missing my calling. I could make up better shit than that, but it's hard to put off of it.
I don't know, also, like, a question could be like, do you believe at least one of these conspiracies? And it's like, if you get one, then that answer is yes to everything. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, that could be.
Because, like, I mean, QAnon's about just, like, every conspiracy, right? They're not focused on anything. It's just it's the Omni conspiracy, right?
The one that people most commonly, I mean, I know about a lot of different facets of that because I was trying to research, because I love conspiracy theories. Like, oh, this is the new thing I want to find out about, and I was deeply disappointed. It was like, oh no, this isn't fun. But it's the one overarching thing seems to be like cult, rich people, child molesters, that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, it can branch off in any way it wants to, because it can become supernatural or whatever. But yeah, that's the overarching thing when people talk about it. But yeah, there's a lot of different facets to it. Time travel, Nikola Tesla, aliens, the devil. I mean, anything you want to, put in there, you can. But when I hear, like, because I just think when I hear about it on the news, I'm thinking, oh, they're talking about the child molesting cults of billionaires that are just running the world. That's what I think when I think of, like, news talking about QAnon, not talking about the Nikola Tesla's time machine and how Trump knows the future and he's trying to save us because he has Nikola Tesla's time machine. Which I don't know if that's truly a part of QAnon or not, but I heard that once and was like, yep, makes sense. I could definitely see people going for that. But yeah, but when I hear things like that on the news, that's what I assume they're talking about. But then you could ask how many people believe in unicorns and aliens, and you'd probably get a 15% number too. But,
yeah. You ever have those moments where you forget that like a fictional being doesn't exist?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I don't know. I remember there was like one time where I was like people were like making fun of various cars, and people are still like, what Ford stands for, right? And it's like fix or repair daily or something like that, and it's like, and then for a moment I was like, wait, what does Ford stand for? Like, oh, it's a name. Fuck me, whatever.
Well, yeah, because a lot of let's see, GM is an acronym, Audi is an acronym, BMW is an acronym, Volkswagen's an acronym. So a lot of car companies are acronyms.
Yeah.
Ford and Chrysler, Ferrari are not. I don't know about Peugeot. I don't speak French.
But no, it's so you just get caught up in that train of
yeah,
thought.
yeah. You're like, yeah.
And then you say it out loud, and you immediately know, oh no, I said that out loud, didn't I?
I didn't mean to vocalize that.
And and this is something I've seen like somebody else do, but like I hear stories where people are like, yeah, I still wish there were unicorns around. And you're like, wait, what?
I'd like to meet a hobbit someday. That don't exist anymore. I was like, yeah, it's too bad.
And then I think like the story went like, well, no, like there's no flying unicorns, but like, regular unicorns, like, just a horse with a horn on its head, which, if that's what you're thinking, it's like, well, it doesn't seem like outside the possibility of nature to happen, but like, no, there are no unicorns. You got some narwhals, but no unicorns.
Yeah, closest you get to that in a land mammal is a rhinoceros.
Yeah,
that's your unicorn. And if you can put a saddle on a rhinoceros and ride it, that's cool. That would actually terrify people, especially if you're swinging a sword or a war around.
I hear rhinoceroses are a bit more docile than you think they are for how dangerous they look.
Yeah, I guess they're.
Well, they don't really have like they don't have like predators, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
And then the one that you don't expect, that's like is like ferocious and actually kills like more humans than almost any other like mammal is hippopotamuses.
Cape buffalo are actually the most dangerous.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's just because there's so many of them, and they'll just run you over because they're as big as a truck. But yeah, hippos are wildly dangerous. And you know what they're related to? Pigs.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I didn't know that. So yeah, it's in the family of whatever scientific family pigs are in. But of course, pigs are wildly dangerous too.
Yeah.
The wild ones with the big tusks. Not the one from like Babe, but I mean the razorbacks. Like those are dangerous.
But if you look at like, animals that kill humans, you think like, oh, it's gonna be tigers and sharks top of the list. But no, it's like hippos and buffaloes.
A lot of dray animals, a lot of slow lumbering animals.
Did you see the video where like the guys were using a backhoe to like help an elephant out of a sinkhole?
Oh yeah, I think I did see that.
And then when they helped it out, like the elephant was like headbutting the backhoe. It's like, hey buddy, he just helped you out. Like what? And then they threw like a big firecracker at it so it'd run away when it went off.
Yeah, it's like he's worried that this, the earth mover is gonna like steal his mate. It's like I gotta headbutt this thing. Have you ever seen like jellyfish? Or not jellyfish? No, not jellyfish. What are those like little octopus things like they have in Japan, where sometimes the tide will come in and they'll get caught like in a pool and then it'll start drying out, and then the guys will like pick them up and put them in the ocean, and then the octopus will come back and like touch their feet with all its tentacles to thank them. It's like tap 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 tap, and they're saying thank you because they're just so weird. They're just weird. That's it's like thank you, tap 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 tap. It's kind of endearing and strange.
I've seen a lot of weird Japanese and like sea life stuff like that. You ever see them like we're like a koi pond where like the kois are like dogs and like they'll like come up and get petted by the human or whatever.
Yes,
that's fucking weird.
You just put your hand in the water and this fish swims up to it and you're like this, and the fish is like, it's like, you can tell it's confused, but it's like, oh, that's not normal. Where's this happening? Japan. City of the country of the future.
I saw in Japan they're taking like phone booths and turning them into like fish ponds, or just they're making them aquariums.
That's kind of a neat idea, but they're leaving them there as a phone booth, and walk up and there's this minnow swimming around in it. Okay, I could see them doing that in Japan. I mean, Japan has the places where they had the toilets that would incinerate feces. Like you put a piece of paper in there, you use the toilet, then you press the button, and this valve would go down, no water, and it would just drop into the bottom, and then it would incinerate the feces. It's like, that seems like a, I don't know, strange use resources. It takes a lot. How much fire would it take to incinerate that? But yeah. The grateful octopus. Now, of course, it's cute because this thing's like the size of your hand. Now, if this was like something from 20,000 leagues under the sea, wouldn't be so nice. But, well, that's all I have. So, if you're ready,
all right.
Are you ready to play us out?
Yeah.
This week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Colin. Goodbye, America. And that's it.
And that's it.
I have to stop the podcast.
Oh, okay. Now we can say really bad stuff.